And then there was Sazerac. In 2008, with the Brazilians of InBev plotting their hostile takeover of Anheuser-Busch, the people of St. Louis took comfort in their conviction that the brewery's family owners would never sell off their namesake. But as Carlos Brito and his merry band of corporate brewing raiders completed their conquest of the king of beers, the hometown public realized what the international interlopers had already figured out almost a year prior. Namely, that by the 21st century, the Busch family didn't actually control very much of Anheuser-Busch. Less than 4% of the stock, according to William Notistator's excellent bitter brew. In the run-up to 2008, the company had also made some changes to its bylaws that left it more vulnerable to barbarians at the gate. Brito was, by all accounts, a brilliant tactician, but the Bushes made it easy. The takeover was unfathomable until it wasn't. Nearly 20 years later, another august American beverage alcohol behemoth is in the throes of its own mergers and acquisitions mayhem, and the preferences and proxy ownership of another drinks industry dynasty are, once again, germane to the proceedings. Now, the Browns are not the Bushes, Brown-Forman is not Anheuser-Busch, and Sazerac is not InBev. But with a potential merger of equals between the Louisville liquor colossus and Pernod Ricard officially kiboshed, thanks to transatlantic distilling family disagreements between the Browns of Kentucky and the Ricards of France, the brand collector of New Orleans is the only corporate suitor still known to be circling Brown-Forman. And reportedly with a $15 billion check in hand at that. It's an unfathomable takeover in its own right, but on the advice of history, let's do a little fathoming, just in case. In April 2026, the Wall Street Journal broke the news that Brown-Forman and Pernod Ricard were in talks for a potential merger of equals. Now, there were logical reasons to do this deal. You got complementary territories, you've got complementary portfolios, you've got potentially complementary executive cores. Plus, with soft sales, both firms might have benefited from the shot in the arm that comes with more buying power and lower labor costs via layoffs. Or synergies, as they're known in corporate speak. But there were also emotional reasons for Brown-Forman not to merge with Pernod Ricard, or at all. Unlike the Bushes, the Browns have retained a pretty strong grasp on their half-eponymous company. Financial filings from the publicly traded firm note that the Browns own more than 50% of the voting stock. Brown-Forman's 2024 proxy statement shows that just two investment vehicles own 67.5% of all the decision-making shares. Semaphore recently reported that the Brown family controls around 80% of the company's voting power. Meanwhile, contemporary reporting indicates there are around 100 living Browns, and beyond the 4 members on the corporate board, it's not clear who owns what stake. But suffice to say, they probably ain't going out like the Bushes. Semaphore's Rohan Goswami reported that Brown-Forman Ricard, is that what we're calling it? Fell apart because the Browns didn't like the idea of relinquishing any control to the Ricards, rather than the price tag. Trade insiders have also speculated that the Browns simply couldn't countenance any loss of cultural or political clout in Louisville that a newly transatlantic corporate center of gravity might have brought. But back to the Sazerac of it all. The New Orleanian firm is privately traded, but it's also family-owned. The aptly named Gold Rings have controlled it for 4 generations. And here's where it gets tricky. As a company, Brown-Forman is upper crust, reserved, and obsessed with appearances. Sazerac is hard-charging, big spending, and paradoxically allergic to consumer-facing limelight. Now, Brown-Forman's flagship, Jack Daniel's, is hardly top-shelf stuff, and Sazerac has super high-end brands of its own in its portfolio, up to including Pappy Van Winkle. But the former commands far more prestige in industry circles than the latter, whose cash-printing gas station gambits like Fireball Cinnamon and Buzzballs have given it a coarse, almost nouveau riche reputation. Don't forget, Brown-Forman sold Southern Comfort to Sazerac in 2016. There's a reason you don't see that pipeline going the other direction, and it's the same reason you see Saz resuscitating Svedka's horny sex bot for a Super Bowl spot and splashing out with a buy-in on Kendall Jenner's 818 tequila. Brown-Forman may have more class, volume, and value, but Sazerac has fewer fucks to give, and that served it really, really well as the spirits category has slid down market to more flavor-forward single-serve stuff. You could see that making for good portfolio overlap, right? A marriage of prestige full-bottle spirits and mass-media tentpoles with fast-moving RTDs and C-store savvy, but only if everybody's on the same page. Some observers are certain that the Goldring's swashbuckling swill shilling at Sazerac would function as its own poison pill to the patrician Browns of Brown-Forman. And maybe so. While the Louisville conglomerate has been listing lately, there's nothing forcing it to do a deal. At least, nothing that we know about. it could walk away from the table entirely. Now, turning your back on $15 billion would be tough, but even in its diminished state, the federal antitrust establishment would probably do some tire kicking on Sazerac. Is that what we're calling this? It'd be a hassle for everyone involved, but probably more vexing to the about-town Browns. Then there are the intangibles. As the erstwhile Bush brood can attest, after the initial windfall of the sale comes capital gains tax and, worse, irrelevance. August Bush IV wasn't of particularly sound mind before Anheuser-Busch gave up the ghost to Brito and the Brazilians, but available reporting suggests the hostile takeover put him over the edge. And there's a lesson there. Even black sheep don't want to be remembered for letting the family business fall to the wolves. This video is adapted from a recent column I published at Fingers. Read it in full and get all of my award-winning coverage about drinking in America by buying a subscription at fingers.email. Fingers is 100% reader-supported, so every subscription really does count. Finally, let me know if you like this video essay version in the comments below.